Hi everyone, it's Jeanette here from the Sewn Studio. Welcome to another star block tutorial. Now last time we were doing the LeMoyne Star and we did it the more traditional way using diamonds. And if you remember, we had a little bit of a tricky bit there with our point in the centre. So I also talked a little bit about an easier version where you use half square triangles. So I thought today we would show you that just in case you don't want to tackle those tricky diamonds. So just a reminder, the fabric we're using is called Soiree. It's from Mara Penny for Moda Fabrics. We sell it here in the shop in different pre-cuts as well as off the bolt. And I just wanted to mention as well that we have started to ship through our website to other parts around the world. So if you're interested in this fabrics or anything else here you see demoed, you can have a look on the website and see if we've started to deliver to the country where you live. So I just wanted to cover that as well, because sometimes we do get some comments and questions about some of the fabrics. So we're going to do our star. Now I've been using a layer cake for this, and this layer cake has just kept going and going and going. And I've still got plenty left to make more star blocks. So we will put a link in the description to the tutorial where we've done the trickier version, we shall call it, with the diamonds. And there'll possibly be some other links to some of the other star blocks we've done. We've done the Friendship Star, we've done a Sawtooth Star, we've done Ohio Star, and as I said, we've got two versions of the LeMoyne. So I've started to prepare a little bit of this, just to speed it up a little bit, but together today we're going to sew one whole star block. Now if I bring this star block in and put it under the close-up. Now one thing I just wanted to point out, because in some of the other star block videos, we've been making our half square triangle units through different methods, and I think in a couple of them we've used, I think the Friendship Star, we used 3-inch squares, and we did the version where you draw a line diagonally down the centre and then sew 1/4 of an inch either side. But in some of these fabrics, as I said, I'm using a layer cake. I'm getting to the point where I'm ending up with sort of strips of it rather than sort of larger pieces. So when I get to that point, I choose a different method, and that's where I bring in my very trusted, one of my top 6 rulers, Creative Grids, Flying Geese ruler, because this has got the top bit here is a half square triangle ruler. So when I use strips, this is the ruler I grab for. Now the other place where I might use the ruler and strips rather than a different method of 2 at a time, 4 at a time, or even 8 at a time half square triangles is how many half square triangle units I need in the actual block. So if you can see from this one, I've used different fabrics in all the different star legs. So actually I only need 1 half square triangle unit of the purple with a background, and one of those then goes next to a colour. So we're only using sort of single half square triangles in this block, so it also makes sense to use that ruler and the strip method for doing this one. So let me just show you how that works, and I'll do this under the close-up as well. So I've got my little bit of strip there. Now this ruler I'm just going to show you, it's in effect 2 triangles in one. This sort of top pointed bit here, that's the half square triangle ruler, and if we turn it round, this bottom bigger part of the ruler, that's for 1/4 square triangles. Now we need the half square triangle bit, so I'm actually going to lay that on the fabric. Now I can see my end there isn't straight, so you could straighten that off first, but what I tend to do is sort of make my first cut, and then I tend to just do that. Now if I'm perfectly honest, if I was at home I would have probably done a bit of dodgy cutting there, but we're going to get into good habits because we're on camera. So I didn't pick that up there at all, put that in the waste. So you've got my little half square triangle unit, and then once you've cut one, you can turn the ruler around so the blunt tip is facing you. And I'm just making sure. Now every so often when you're doing this, you might find you need to do a little clean-up cut on this edge here. It's fabric, it's a sort of living thing. And so that would be my 2 half square triangles, and I would do the same. Now, of course, you could stack if you wanted to speed this up. I'll show you the other method. What I could also do on this one is square off that end first, and then cut my half square triangles. So if I was at home, I would probably have these stacked up on top of each other. But saying that, I don't stack up too many because accuracy is key, particularly when we're using sort of these smaller smaller size pieces. So that's my half square triangle. Now I only need one for that. So the second one I would make for this inner piece. Let me just bring that in. I would add another colour, so I would cut another colour. But that's just to show you how to cut using that ruler. Now I tend to also not leave a bias edge on these. So if I'm cutting half square triangles, I will leave my strip like that. So that will go into a little spare half square triangle box, and my strip stays with a straight edge because that is the bias, and that does tend to sort of warp and stretch. And I do quite a lot with half square triangles, so that would definitely come into use there. So that's how you cut using that ruler. Now I've got some, actually let's take that, and then let's not jump ahead. So to sew that together, that would just go like that. So let's actually take that to the machine and sew, and then we'll fast forward to laying out the other half of that block. So we're sewing with an accurate 1/4 inch because these rulers are made with an accurate 1/4 inch. Now this is definitely a place where I start either on a leader and ender or a starter scrap of fabric where we've got that small point. And there it is all sewn. So you can just see we've got 2 of the little dog ears. So I tend to, at this point, just take those other little bits off. And then I'm just going to finger press that open. Now I'll talk about pressing this block, which way the seams need to go. So there would be your half square triangle unit. So let's fast forward. I've got the other pieces for this, so let's bring in my star block here. Let's put it there as my site map. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. So let's lay out our other pieces. So you can see I'm using 4 different fabrics, but I've used sort of similar colours. So the tricky bit is this inner piece has no background. It's just all the pattern fabric. And then you put the coloured fabric to form a diamond. So then that bit's going to go there. That bit is going to go there. So we've got our diamond, so I know I'm correct. This now should be a blank square. So actually if I put it like that, it might make more sense. So that's this one here. And then I've got the second half of this purple, which is now forming a diamond. The second half of this pink, I nearly turned it then and got that all wrong. Oh look, we've got a nice little umbrella there in the centre. And then we've got our square. So we can sew those together in rows. Now this, hold on, this is where you make sure you don't turn. So I'm going to put that together and put a pin in it. Now that we've got no seam to match there, this is going to go together in a row. There's no seam to match there. Oh, that's a bendy pin. Let's try a different one. And as I said, I point my pin to where I need to sew. So let's just do this one at a time so I don't confuse myself. Okay, so let's just take it back and check we've got everything in order. Yes, so we're still making our diamonds, so I'm confident I can go ahead. Now, I'm just going to show you this bit, because on these, I've pressed this seam towards the pink and this seam towards the green, so that when I put those two together, they're going in opposite directions, so I can nest them. Now I'm going to put a pin in that one. Now I'm also going to pick these up and sew these while I'm at it. It's a bit easier with these outside ones because you've got some background squares, so you know that that's where they get placed. On both of these blocks, I've pressed towards the back, the coloured square, so away from the background. And because these are going in different directions, it means these seams will nest. Now I'm just going to lay these out before I do the final seam and put the rows together. Now when I'm at home, I have a little area next to me that I can lay it all out and check, but here we'll just check as we go. Yeah. So we're going to put that one onto there. I'm just going to nest those seams, give them a little rub, and it will just sort of push them together. And I'm going to put a pin there. And the same here. It's quite bulky in the centre. You've got quite a few seams coming together. So that's now ready to sew. So there's those two seams all come together. We've got our nice little diamonds. We should have 1/4 of an inch there. I'm just going to check that I'm happy where things have all come out, and I am, but much easier to get a nice centre with this block. So all I need to do now is put those two halves together. So once again, I'm trusting the pins to hold my seams. It's very bulky here in the centre now, so do make sure you've got seams going in opposite directions. If you prefer, you can press your seams open if you find that's a bit too bulky for you to work with. And then we can take that and just do that one final seam. Okay, so that's ready now to go to the iron. Now these joining seams, I tend to press open because, as I said, there's quite a lot of bulk. Oh, it's not quite warmed up yet. That's better. That's a little tricky bit there. Oh, I've just flipped that one, so let's just press that back where it should go. And this is where you've got most of the bulk right there, so opening up that seam will distribute that. And once I've ironed it from the back, I can come and hit it from the front. And if you see here, I just sort of make sure that there's no sort of tucks or creases. Just sort of put some tension on the fabric. You don't want to really pull it because the heat can distort it, but you just want to put a bit of tension on. And there's our block. I'm a little bit off there, but I can make it work. So there that is, all pressed, and you can see those points have come together a lot better. Now I'm a little bit off there, but I think I can make that work within my block. If you can't, I could just sort of undo that little bit of seam and just redo that again. But that's the block. So I now look, I've got 1, 2, and a large LeMoyne Star. As I said, this is the easiest method using half square triangles, but if you want something a little bit more challenging, should we call it, then you can definitely try that with the diamonds. But like I say, just watch your centre when you're using that technique. So we've got quite a few star blocks now coming together for this quilt. We'll do another one next time, and then I'll have a look actually whether or not I've got enough for my layout or not. I've had some ideas about layout, So we're getting quite close to that point, I think, where we can begin to sort of put some of these things together. So I'm sure we're going to put some links to descriptions to some of the other star blocks that we've been doing this series. I think we've put it together as a playlist, so you can go through and have a look at any of those. So thank you for joining me. If there's a particular star block that you'd like to be included in this quilt, do let me know. Put it in the comments or, through any of our social media platforms. And as always, if you've enjoyed this, like, comment, share, subscribe, all those wonderful things. It helps us to keep making some tutorials and sharing our ideas and projects with you. So thank you once again for joining me, and I hope you'll join me again here next time in the sewing studio.